bleed and blue, they got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fith. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter.
That's right. Welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian here for episode 41. No still life Dennis this time. It's the real Dennis Fithian back for episode 41. Welcome back, Dennis.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. When you have to rely on the internet, sometimes it goes astray, man. I was just sitting here in a helpless position, but feel pretty good tonight. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. And of course, we've got 5 fantastic chapters for everybody in episode number 41. And it's almost like it's the appetizer for the main event that everyone's going to be watching tonight at about 9 o'clock. If people want to take a break from watching a little bit of baseball. And of course, that is the big debate between the tax cheater and Sleepy Joe. Before we get to today's book, Dennis, what's the biggest reason that you're going to be watching tonight's debate?
Well, they take about 2 minutes break between innings of the baseball game, so something to take a look at for some entertainment. You know, everybody's going to be talking about it as well, so history, be able to go check out, see how they present themselves, how a debate will look under a pandemic, all of those things. Those would be the reasons. I'm not the biggest fan of politics or anything, so you're talking to somebody that will be voting but has very low interest in the presidential campaign.
Well, I put up a poll on Twitter yesterday asking people what their number one reason was for watching the debate, and there were 4 options. Option 1, I'm a partisan Republican. Option 2, I'm a partisan Democrat. Option 3, Trump is entertaining. Or option 4, I'm a responsible voter. What do you think the number one option was, and what % of the vote do you think it got?
No, probably Trump's entertaining, knowing your crowd.
Well, that's what I would have chosen, and that got 32.3% of the vote, but I'll put it up on the screen so everyone can see. Number 1 was I'm a responsible voter. 42.7% are watching because they're a responsible voter. 32.3% are like me. They're watching because Trump is entertaining. 16.7% say they are partisan Republicans, and 8.3% say they are partisan Democrats. So it's certainly a big mix there. As far as today's show is concerned, let's take a look at today's book. In the second chapter, it's Heat versus Lakers in the NBA Finals. We'll give you our predictions for that. In the third chapter, we've got the MLB playoffs underway. We'll tell you who we think is going to win the World Series to get the quote-unquote chunk of metal from Rob Manfred. He also spoke recently. We'll tell you what stupid things he's saying today. And the Tigers' offseason expectations. They, for some reason, aren't in the playoffs, even though most teams qualify for the playoffs. In the fourth chapter, a big coronavirus outbreak with the Titans, while Purdue is suspending 13 athletes for violating their own pledge. And in the fifth chapter, the major wager. We do start, though, Dennis, with the first chapter, and that takes us to the Detroit Lions, the same old Lions on the same old Lions Sunday 2 days ago. It looked like as an 0-2 football team going on the road against an undefeated Cardinals team as a 5.5 to 6 point underdog. They would just go in there and get smoked. I thought the Cardinals would cover the spread. The Lions are still without 2 of their top cornerbacks. And I know that a lot of Lions fans out there were hoping for the same thing, hoping the Lions would lose because they want Patricia and Quinn out. A lot of Lions fans are saying, hey, if they can go 0-4 to start the season, then in week 5 during the bye week, Sheila Ford can clean house and get them out. And it looked like the Lions would have a shot to do so, but Kyler Murray, he didn't exactly pick the Lions apart. He did at times, but he also threw not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions and almost threw a 4th interception. And the Lions were able to tie the game up in the fourth quarter. And then as time wound down at the end of the game, Matt Prater hit a chip shot 39-yard field goal to win the game. It wasn't the same old Lions loss, but you could qualify as the same old Lions win to move them to 1-2. Dennis, what did you think of Sunday's same old Lions win, and what does it mean moving forward?
Well, I would say SOC, same old Chapman, because I knew whether they won or lost, you'd be on them. But, that's the way it goes. Here's the positioning of a Lions fan. You head into the season with everything open, hoping, hey, maybe this is going to be the year. Then they go out and the prize rookie running back drops the ball, and it's going to come back to haunt you. So, you really get punched in the face in week one. Week two, they go out. You knew they were going to lose to Green Bay, but in the manner that they lost it, and when you go 0-2, you start thinking, all right, well, let's get into the Trevor Lawrence. Let's cheer for these guys going over. We can get into the Lawrence sweepstakes. We can get rid of Matt Patricia. We can get rid of Bob Quinn. And then they come up with a dub. So now you're stuck. You're back to thinking, well, it doesn't matter. If they win, they pull even, and they've got something that their credit. They've come back and they've got the season back on the rails. But then if they lose, you're back in the position where you can root against them, and you can hope that maybe Sheila Hamp will fire them. So it's all of those sort of things for rooting interest for the Lions. What are you doing with your hand there?
I was pointing toward toward Trevor Lawrence. You said so much for Trevor Lawrence, you talked about Trevor Lawrence, so I was pointing right there to Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
But look, I think you're right about a lot of that, but I think that this win that we saw on Sunday is part of what makes it so difficult to be and so frustrating to be a Lions fan, because we've seen it so many times when perhaps they have a winnable game to start the season, they blow it. You mentioned the second game they had no shot to win. Everybody knew that, and fans want them to clean house, get that sexy draft pick, and they think, all right, it's a clear slate. We should lose to the Arizona Cardinals, and then boom, they come up with a win. It was like what happened 2 years ago. Everyone thought, oh, this is going to be a terrible year, and then what do? They beat the New England Patriots somehow, some way, and it was a same old Lions win. When you want them to win, they lose. When you want them to lose, they win. Somehow the defensive backs found a way to cover. Suddenly they pick off their first pass of the year, get their first turnover of the year. They're not atrocious against the run, and they win that game. And I think this I'm not going to say it changes the whole trajectory of the season, but it changes the whole trajectory of the first half of the season, because when we were thinking that they were going to go 0-4, I didn't think that they would fire Patricia and Quinn during the bye week if they went 0-4, but some folks were saying so, and if they got smoked in Game 3 and Game 4, perhaps there would be that chance. But now I think that we all have to buckle in and know that unless they lose their next 5 games by 30 points apiece, Quinn and Patricia are going to be here through at least Halloween. And in terms of Trevor Lawrence, I think you're out of that already, especially with Saquon Barkley going down and the Giants losing by 30 points to an undermanned San Francisco 49ers team. And Justin Fields, he looks like he could be out of the equation as well now that they're 1-2. I think that Lions fans are going to have a different outlook on things moving forward after yesterday's game, or Sunday's game. Not to say that they're going to go on a playoff run, but Trevor Lawrence and firing Patricia in a couple weeks, that's not happening.
Well, as much as you might hate the Lions like Chap, there was no way that the Lions were ever going to be one of the worst 3 teams if Matt Stafford was healthy. So if you're rooting for your quarterback to get hurt, I know they started 0-2, and I know the defense was atrocious, but they were never going to just win 2 or 3 ball games. You got to put the both New York teams in that mix there, considering how bad the Jets have looked and how they want to lose every game. They traded away Jamal Adams. They're the most injured team in the league, and I would also put the Broncos in the mix there. Now that Locke's hurt, they've got a guy. Driscoll's hurt as well. They got a guy starting Thursday that I've never heard of, and that's saying something. So put the Broncos in the mix there as well for one of those top draft picks. But I will give it up to Duron Harmon. That was watching the Lions. It was really weird watching them come up and make plays on defense. I'm used to this, that not happening, of course, especially after watching them the first 2 games. But Jamie Collins, he got his head turned on, his helmet turned on straight instead of going after the referees. Played a hell of a ball game. So you got to give it up to the Lions defense there. And Kenny Galladay makes a huge difference. Having a big-time playmaker for your quarterback, he was a difference maker as well. So that all adds up to the Lions, at least for a week, being able to make their fans confused whether they want them to lose or win. I think you're good if you're a Lions fan either way, man. They lose, you're like, hey, we're going to be a crappy team. We'll probably fire these two guys. We'll be out of playoff competition. But if they win, the season's back. So it's a win-win heading into Sunday, the way I look at it.
I think it just makes you more frustrated and confused because I think if you're a typical Lions fan, you're going into the season saying, we want to win, we want to make the playoffs, especially with an extra playoff team. But when you start out 0-2, I think there are some fans that say, hey, come on, let's just get a win. I know we can turn this around a little bit, but there are others that are saying, let's just get Trevor Lawrence and win or a top 5 pick, whatever. And when you win that game, that third game of the year to get to 1-2, I think it does lead some fans who are on the tank train, or I guess, yeah.
Well, let's just be honest, Chap. You're never going to get Trevor Lawrence unless Stafford gets hurt.
So. No, I know that, but there are some fans that would think that, and some that would say, okay, let's at least get the consolation prize of Justin Fields. And if you win, when you win that first game, even if you were hoping they would go 0-16 or 1-15, that's out the door. But I will say this. If you're one of those Lions slappies that is all of a sudden wanting to turn things around and saying, hey, we got a chance to do some things now, there are some talking points out there, like, for instance, the Lions' opponents so far this year are 8-1 because the Bears are undefeated, the Packers are undefeated, and the Cardinals' only loss is to the Lions. So you could be saying, hey, we're the best one-loss or one-win team in the NFL. Additionally, you look at their next 8 opponents, they have 6 combined wins at 6-18. New Orleans, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Washington, Carolina, winless Houston. They have 6 combined wins. So if you're a slappy, you're thinking, hey, maybe this is where we turn things around. In these next 8 games, they could tank out of control and go 2-6 to cement an awful season. But what if they go 4-4 or 5-3? Now all of a sudden, the Lions are a playoff contender, right where Sheila Ford Hamp said that they had to be in order to keep those 2 individuals, Quinn and Patricia, employed.
Well, Cherry Chap, you're making a pretty good point there. It's probably likely that that's what the Lions will do. They'll find a way with the schedule here to fall into some wins. The only other thing about all that you were saying, it's not just a 2-quarterback draft. Trey Lance from North Dakota State is in the mix there. When he's an outlier like that, but you listen to those scouts and you might say, yeah, the scouts like Trubisky too, but the kid he plays a lot like Justin Fields. So
I don't doubt that, but I think most fans are probably going to say, hey, I've seen Lawrence, I see what Justin Fields is doing, I want one of those two.
Yeah, well, educated fans, I think, will take a look. Just like, you want to be educated when it comes to politics, educated in the draft. You should just put Trey Lance in the mix there as well.
Fair enough.
When talking about the quarterback race. We do have some feedback, and this coming in from DJ, who says Trevor Lawrence is going to the Giants. They can't win a quarter, let alone a game. Fair enough. Keith says Patricia and Quinn. I know, these seem like, let me just read them. Patricia and Quinn should be fired. They still will only win 5 to 7 games. And I am stunned. This is from Keith. I am stunned that the Lions beat the Cardinals. Hell is frozen over now. Yeah, you know what? You get those teams that are 0-2 and they haven't made a play, and the coaches look embattled. They don't look like they can stop anybody, but you have 2 choices there, man. You just go belly up and really revolt against your coach, or you go out there and you fight and find a way to at least play for another week, and that's what the Lions did. But, yeah, I thought they were going to get beat too. If I had to put money on it, I was on the Cardinals all day long. And, Kyler Murray looked great in the first 2 games. Did not look that way against the Lions at home. So you got to credit the Lions a little bit for coming up and making those plays.
Yeah, I thought that he looked great at times, and then all of a sudden he'd throw an interception. Like, I think in the first half he had only 4 incompletions, but half of those incompletions were for interceptions. And so you have to give the Lions credit for picking off those 3 passes, almost a 4th pass in the 4th quarter. But what was interesting to me, and another sign that the Lions are still a bad football team, is they won the turnover battle by 3. and they needed a last-second field goal to win. You and I both know that if you win a turnover battle by 3 in the NFL, odds are you're winning by double digits. They needed a last-second field goal to do so. So still certainly lots of issues with the same old Lions. And then the running back position, Peterson, 22 carries, 75 yards. Swift, no carries. Carry on 3 carries. Still lots of issues there, but they ate the W anyway.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why they drafted DeAndre Swift or Jerryon Johnson. I don't know, man. That is troubling. But it's not like the Saints are. It's not like Drew Brees is 35-year-old Drew Brees, 41-year-old Drew Brees. Now the Lions will have a shot. I'm not going to pick them. Spoiler alert for Thursday. I'm going to be on the Saints for this one, but it's mostly because of Kamara, not because of Drew Brees.
Yeah, Lions, outside of this past weekend, haven't been able to stop the run. And in terms of where Lions fans stand right now after advancing to 1-2, one thing I like to do on Twitter is I like to put out a poll after every single game, putting out what I call the Monday morning over-under, asking Lions fans what they think the Lions record will be after that particular game. And I set the Monday morning over-under this week at 6 wins. Last week I set it at 4.5, and 85% said that it would be under. I'll put up the results from this week, and there don't seem to be a whole lot of slappies because 76.7% of Lions fans still believe the Lions will win under 6 games after eating that W against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, you know what? On this night of debates, Democrats like to talk about tax returns. Republicans like to talk about Sleepy Joe. And Brian Chapman loves Twitter polls. We'll call you Lion Chapman.
Lion Chapman. Yeah, just like Lion Ted.
That's right. Let's turn the page. That gets us to Chapter 2.
That's right.
Yeah, and that takes us to tomorrow, and it is the NBA Finals. It is the Los Angeles Lakers and the Miami Heat from the bubble. I looked at the new floor today. These two matching up. What do you think of the matchup here, Chapman, of the Heat out of the East and the Lakers out of the West?
Well, I was certainly hoping that it would be Heat versus Nuggets, but I'm sure that the NBA is thrilled that it's Heat versus Lakers because it's LeBron's current team versus his old team, and they get a big market in there, and there's so many LeBron fans that they can draw eyeballs to the TV beginning tomorrow. I also noticed that Rob Manfred has cleared out the baseball schedule to not interfere with the basketball schedule. Tomorrow there's 8 baseball games, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, so that they won't be interfering with the NBA. But my heart says the Heat are going to win in 6 because they've only lost 3 times in the playoffs. And if they've only lost 3 times in the playoffs, how are they going to lose 4 times in one series? They're a lot deeper than the Lakers as well. My head says the lazy Lakers are going to win in 5 because the Lakers are, for the most part, a 2-man team. But in the last couple of games, LeBron stepped up and decided to put away the Nuggets. He was not going to allow them to be the third victim to a 3-1 Nuggets deficit. I think that Adebayo can match up against Anthony Davis, but certainly not shut him down. And there's nobody on the Heat that can match up with LeBron James. From a talent standpoint, I think the Heat have the more talented team after you get past LeBron and AD, but those are the 2 best players in the series. And on top of that, the Heat are far from the most talented team that LeBron James has faced in an NBA Finals. And I think if you look at the best and second and third best players that a LeBron James team has faced in the NBA Finals, this is probably the weakest. You look, for example, at the Golden State Warriors. They played LeBron's Cavaliers 4 straight years, and those Warriors teams, with or without Durant, who are a heck of a lot more talented than the current Miami Heat, and LeBron's Cavs went 1-3 against those Warriors. I think the Warriors would crush this year's Heat. I think LeBron's Heat that were 1-1 against the Spurs would crush this year's Heat. So I'm going to go split the difference a little bit. I'll say the Lakers win, but they win this series in 6.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Miami Heat in 6 games. I think they're going to shock the world. It's going to be shades of the 04 Pistons. The 04 Pistons had to go against Shaq and Kobe And if you just look, there's a lot of similarities there. You got LeBron and Anthony Davis. It's a two-man team. And after that, Bam Adebayo, who you mentioned, he was second team all defense. He can get in there. He can check Anthony Davis. And Davis is going to get his just like LeBron is going to be like Kobe in this one. But the supporting cast, it looks a lot like the mailman of the glove out there. When you got Rajon, Rondo, and you've got Dwight Howard. And I think this Heat team, they play that zone and they can hide their wings and Hero and Duncan Robinson. And those guys can just concentrate on getting buckets. And for Robinson shooting threes here, I think the recipe is there. And, that Heat team, if they just ratchet up that defense, rebounding is going to be a big thing. That's where they really got to make sure they're hitting the glass there. But I just I see the similarities. It's what I'm hoping for. An 04 Pistons going up that Laker team looks a lot like that 04 Lakers team with the two superstars and then some over-the-hill guys supporting cast. There's not a whole hell of a lot there when you look at the supporting cast there for the Lakers. So, Jimmy Butler, close to a superstar. I think that he can match buckets with LeBron there. And, of course, Adebayo, man, he could be the Ben Wallace defensive player. You saw him go up and have that all-time block against Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more plays like that where he's just in there against Anthony Davis and maybe he can combat that. Go out there and steal that first game, get that confidence, and let's see. And plus, betting them, you get such a great money line, which is coming up in the major wager in the fifth chapter. It's one of those that you don't have to bet a lot to win a lot. So you like that, especially of course the Heat come and are able to do it. But I'm riding the Heat.
Yeah, I would like the Heat to win, and I think that one other thing you have to look at with regards to Miami is that this is going to be the toughest defensive challenge for the Lakers so far, because if you look at who they faced in the playoffs, they faced the Portland Trail Blazers, who played no defense, particularly in the interior. Then they played the Houston Rockets, whose tallest starter was, like 6'7". And then they played the Denver Nuggets, who they weren't a great defensive team either. And certainly you looked at those last couple of games, LeBron James was just treating it like a layup line. There was no interior defense whatsoever.
No.
The Miami Heat, outside of Duncan Robinson, every single one of their 7 or 8 players who plays is going to go out there and play tough, tenacious defense. And if there's somebody handling the ball who's not LeBron or not Anthony Davis, then they're very ripe to get their pockets picked.
Yeah, LeBron's so great at picking apart a zone where he just, he brings it up, knows how to move the ball, knows how to penetrate those gaps, throws the alley-oop,
That's what scares me.
Kick it out. That scares me too. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here like telling you, oh man, the Heat, this is going to be great. I'm hoping for that. You get the value here, and I see a path for it. But after watching James in the fourth quarter the other night, it's like, woo, that's a tough one. But hope for a long series and hope for the underdog here. Like to see LeBron get smacked down and have to go all this way in the bubble only to come up short. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and that would drop him to 3-7 all time in the NBA Finals, because he won 1 in Cleveland, he won 2 in Miami, he lost 2 in Miami, he lost 1 his first time in Cleveland, so that's 3-3, and then his second time in Cleveland he lost 3, so he's 3-6. People are talking about him being better than Michael Jordan. If he goes to 3-7 in NBA Finals appearances, are we still going to be having this debate about him being better than Michael Jordan? I should hope not.
Probably not. But if he picks up a pandemic title and gets that 4th ring, and he's 35, 36 years old, then that GOAT talk will be re-energized about LeBron James. So if you don't like that particular debate, you can pull for the Heat. Keith on YouTube on the feedback says, I'm taking the Heat, better defensive team. And to think that I thought Jimmy Butler was making a huge mistake going to the Heat as a free agent, and now he is in the finals. Yeah, you wonder, you're a basketball fan, you're like, man, you can never do anything against LeBron, and it's just you hope for these superstars. All of these different teams, from the Sixers to the Timberwolves to the Bulls, they all had Jimmy Butler there. They had him. And Jimmy Butler came in and looked around the Timberwolves locker and read him the riot act. He did the same thing in Philadelphia. You guys are a bunch of softies. Let me get out of here. And, they took to him. They took to him in Miami. Look at him now.
Well, and every team got worse after he left. The Bulls have not been a playoff team since he left. The Timberwolves have not been a playoff team, and now they've got the number one pick in the draft. The 76ers were, they got swept or won one game, whatever it was, in the first round of this year's playoffs, and then they fired their coach. And, here we are with a 3-loss Heat team in the bubble championship. So, yeah, it's amazing. And I do like your comparison between the Heat and the 04 Pistons. I think there are a lot of people out there who are not going to be giving the Heat a very big chance to win, just like the Pistons weren't given a big chance. I remember I was 19 years old at the time, and when you're a 19-year-old and you're between your freshman and sophomore year of college, what do if there's no pandemic? You go across the border to Windsor. That's right, because you can go to the bars there. And we went to a club, and the DJ was saying, Pistons in 6, Pistons in 6. It was right before the series was about to start. And everybody in the crowd was like there was nobody saying, yeah, we could do it. Everybody was like, yeah, I don't think so. And, of course, it was Pistons in 5.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the pandemic, I went back and watched the sweep, the 5-game sweep there. And right off the bat, they're out there and they're saying, oh, yeah, like this is such a heavily favored Lakers team. Nobody's picking the Pistons. Nobody did pick the Pistons. The only person that I can remember picking the Pistons was Greg Kelser. Greg Kelser thought they could do it. Other than that, everybody thought the Pistons were going down. So, but you know one thing about Greg Kelser, he'll
who signs his checks?
Well, he would pick the Pistons to beat the Bucks last year too in the finals. So I don't know if he did that, but he gave him a shot. But hey, he did pick him. So and I like Special K, so it's not like I'm knocking him.
Oh no, I like him too. All right, let's turn the page to the third chapter. Of course, the NHL playoffs are done. The NBA finals are about to begin, and the Major League Baseball playoffs are underway. We've got a couple of finals. And we've got we got 2 games underway right now. And perhaps we'll give you some score updates in just a moment. But for a lot of people, it's a difficult time to work during the NCAA tournament. For me, it's also difficult to work during playoff baseball because I like to watch every single game. And I'm actually a little bit disappointed tomorrow that I decided to go play golf with my dad when there's going to be 7 afternoon games. And so I'm going to be missing a bunch of those. But I like playing golf with my dad, so I'll do so, and I'll have my phone out to check the scores. But we've got this new wild card round with the best of 3 games, all games played at the Better Team Stadium, then the LDS and the LCS, then the World Series with the LCS and the World Series and the LDS in a bubble. The Tigers are not playing. We'll get to them in just a minute. We'll also get to some more bad comments and decisions by Rob Manfred. Of course, you're a big Manfred slappy, so you might disagree. But Dennis, what are your Major League Baseball playoff predictions?
Well, the Dodgers, I'm going to go with them all the way, but I like the Dodgers and the Cubs to meet in the NL Championship. I like the Indians on the top half of that bracket. And in the bottom half, I was looking at the Twins, but, I picked the White Sox to get in there. I'm going to pick the White Sox again. So I'm going an AL Central ALCS championship between the Indians and the White Sox, with the Indians and Dodgers playing in the World Series.
Okay.
But the Dodgers winning it.
And by the way, the finals from earlier today, White Sox beating the A's 4-1. Giolito with a no-hitter through 7 innings. Astros also a 4-1 winner over the Twins with Jorge Polanco getting the bony finger blame from Twins fans for that stupid error in the 9th inning. Yankees up 3-0 on the Indians in the 7th. Nobody likes the Yankees. Very disappointed in that. And the Rays up 3-1 after 8 over the Blue Jays. In the AL, this is looking like a stupid pick now, but I had the Twins beating the Astros in the first round, and it wasn't until after the game started that I remembered, oh yeah, the Twins have lost 16 games in a row. They're like the Detroit Lions, a team that has 1 playoff win since 1957. I think in the whole Ron Gardenhire era, they had 1 playoff series win. So, of course, they lost to the Astros. And, of course, it was an SOL error by Jorge Polanco that led to the Astros winning. I have the White Sox over the A's, so I'm happy that the White Sox won that game. I got the Rays over the Blue Jays, Indians over the Yankees, so that game's not looking good so far. I got the White Sox over the Twins in the DS, and the Rays over the Indians, and then I've got the Rays over the White Sox to get to the World Series. What about
you picked that? I know you picked that even before the season started. You had the Rays in there.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And with them getting the number one seed in the American League, I've got to stick with them. I've got to.
Well, you'd be stupid not to.
Yeah. Now, who do you have? You said you have the Dodgers in the National League.
And Cubs.
Yeah, Dodgers over the Cubs. In the NLCS, I decided to throw a wrench into things because I figured it's 2020, crazy things are going to happen. And, there's not much crazier than one of the worst teams in baseball last year, the Marlins, making the playoffs. And I don't like the Cubs. I think the Cubs are a weak division champion. They played in the weaker of the two Central teams or divisions this year because it was Central versus Central. I wasn't impressed by what the Cubs had, particularly offensively. I think the Marlins will beat the Cubs in the first round, perhaps in 2 games. I got the Braves over the Reds, Cardinals over the Padres, another upset, even though I said the NL Central is terrible, and the Dodgers over the Brewers. I've got Marlins winning again over the Braves, Dodgers over the Cardinals, and then I've got the Dodgers finally taking out the Miami Marlins. But I think that if there's any year for crazy stupid team that was atrocious last year to make a run, it'd be this year. So why not go for the Marlins, especially since they were one of the 2 teams that was smashed most by the pandemic a month or 2 ago. I've got both of those teams, the Marlins and the Cardinals, winning their first round series.
Yeah, that's sticking your neck out there, going with the Marlins. Chapman.
Well, here's the thing. They only have to win 2 games. The shorter you make the series, the easier it is for there to be an upset. You win 1 game, then all of a sudden you got 2 chances to win 1 game to advance. So I like that, and I'm sticking with my preseason prediction of Dodgers over the Rays.
All right, what about the Tigers here? They're not involved, but people will be looking towards the offseason. They need a manager, and they also will be looking towards free agency. What do you think about those 2 departments when it comes to the Detroit Tigers?
Well, I would love to see the Tigers fire Al Avila and hire somebody from the Rays organization because they're always a cheap team, and the Rays always find ways to have at least a winning record. This year, the best record in the American League. But if they're not going to do that, perhaps they could at least get themselves a Rays bench coach or third base coach to be their manager. I mean, when you think about the innovative ways that they go about playing baseball, innovative ways that they go about handling their pitching staffs, how they have a lot of basically utility players that can play different roles, and they insert them in at perfect times to get the best matchup. The Tigers don't have a lot of talent offensively, and their pitching staff was atrocious. If they could get a manager that could get the best out of them, and no organization does that better than the Rays, especially with the cheap amount of money that they spend, I think that would be a great idea to go with somebody from the Rays organization. And as far as this offseason, the number one thing the Tigers need to do is address that starting pitching. I mean, we talked about it on the Fifth Chapter a lot, but it wasn't until I read a Detroit Free Press article, I believe it was yesterday, that I really saw how bad it was. They were basically making the argument that it was the worst Tigers starting rotation ever. Spencer Turnbull on September 8th threw 6 shutout innings against the Brewers. That was the only time in 58 games that the Tigers had a start of at least 6 innings and 0 runs allowed. They were 1 for 58 in doing that. Their starting pitching ERA was 6.37. The Angels was second worst at 5.52. I said it was either on Tuesday or Thursday last week, but they've got one starting pitcher that they can count on for next year, and that's Spencer Turnbull, who looks like he could be a number 3. Everybody else was terrible, period.
Yeah, whether they're terrible or not, I think if they do go after free agents, I think they'll look at the 2 guys that they picked up this year and see if they can get them again. That is Crone and Scope. I don't think they're like, if I would have my wish, like I said, I would have them go after LeMahieu, but the Yankees could easily just up the dollar sign on that. So that seems like a pipe dream. But You know, the Tigers, they're going to go with Boyd. They're going to go with Mize. They're going to go with Skubal. They're going to go with Fulmer. And they're going to either go with Matt Manning or Turnbull. That's going to be your starting rotation. As much as you want to go out there and spend some money on an arm, I don't think that's the direction they're going. My big three for managers, at least the wish list, it's the two cheaters, Hinch and Alex Cora, 1, 2. And then former Tiger Marcus Timms is intriguing there as a third spot. But your idea of rating the Rays, you won't hear much of an argument from me if they get in there, especially if it was from the pitching side. If they said, hey, this is a real reason behind the magic of what they've been doing with these pitchers. We really owe it to this particular guy. If the Tigers brought him in, I can see that. I would buy that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about those three guys that you mentioned is not only are two of them from cheating organizations, but they're all from, at least right now, big spending organizations. Tim's, Yankees spend the second most in all of baseball. Astros are spending a lot now that they're done with their whole rebuild. And, of course, the Red Sox were big spenders. The Tigers, it doesn't look like they're going to be big spenders anytime soon. It certainly doesn't look like they're going to be a big spender this offseason. So if they're going to bring in somebody that's either A, used to having a high-priced roster, or B, high-priced and cheating, and they get brought into Detroit and they say, you can't cheat and we're not going to spend a whole lot of money, work your magic, that manager might be like, well, I mean, the magic was the money and the cheating. I mean, I got nothing else for you.
Well, the one thing about the Red Sox, they already have an opening with their manager. I would say that the odds are heavily favored towards Cora just returning there. If the Astros gets bounced, I would say the same thing about Hinch. But, maybe the Astros win a series or two. They might be compelled just to keep things going how it is. So Hinch could be out there and be a free agent. So definitely some things to take a look at when you're thinking about, if you can get Hinch. And Cora is really a dark horse when it comes there because, boy, he just seems like he's pegged to go back to Boston.
Yeah, and the other thing about baseball we wanted to get to is Rob Manfred. Can't stand him, second worst commissioner in all of sports, only ahead of Gary Bettman, because Gary Bettman likes to just cancel seasons. But Manfred was recently on a podcast with John Heyman, a famous baseball writer. That was earlier this week. And one of the things he said was that baseball's probably done with 7-inning games. So that's one Manfred ball thing that's probably going to be gone after this year. That's a good thing. But he also said that he wants to keep the expanded playoffs with 12 to 14 teams in the future, as you get that offensive mug off the screen because nobody believes that. This year, of course, it's 16 teams. Typically, it's 10 teams, but he wants to have 12 to 14 teams in the future. He also likes the idea of continuing to stick a man on second base in extra innings. Dennis, what do you think about these comments by bad commissioner Rob Manfred?
Yeah, I like the man on second base in extra innings. I enjoyed that this year. I always am against expanded playoffs at the beginning, but then I always like it when they put it in. I thought, boy, they're jerking around where they decided that first he's like, yeah, we're going to go to 16 again. Now it's 14. Now it's 12. Arrive at a number. It never felt right with going the whole season and then just having a one-game playoff and then going to 5. They need to figure that part out. What they really need to do, if the commissioner stood up there and said, hey, we're going to lop off some games here, we're going to go down to 156 or even lower, and then we're going to have an extra round, and we're going to go a best of 3, best of 5, and then best of 7. I would like that a lot better than what they had previous to this. But you know what? Gary Bettman has moved up, in my opinion. He came out and he pulled off a nice pandemic playoff there, and they did a good job. And he does love the game. So one thing about Manfred, he's dropping fast, considering that after next year we got to go back and listen to him and Tony Clark bitch at each other for about 3 months straight. Roger Goodell, say whatever you want about him, but he's got things running relatively smoothly in the NFL. So by default, Manfred's on the bottom, even though there's some things that he has done that I'd like, but not being able to get the teams on the field in July was a huge miss for a guy that's always talking about getting the younger fans and screw the older fans. Well, not screw them, but Everything needs to be skewed. Let's cut the times and everything. And they had this tailor-made where they had the whole month to themselves, and they blew it. So he blew it. It's a real bottom line. Yeah, they had a whole week, and they could have had a whole month. They screwed it up. So no love here for Rob Manfred.
No, he does not love the game. That's for certain. Rob Manfred does not love the game of baseball, because if he did love it, then he wouldn't try to keep on changing things so significantly. But look, it's just more shameful garbage from him. I love baseball. I love playoff baseball, like I already mentioned, but I don't want to see 12, 14, 16 teams. One of the things that I like about it is that it's hard to get into the baseball playoffs. You look at basketball and hockey, most teams get in. You're going to have teams with a losing record or a 500 record get in, and I don't think that's right. In the NFL, you can win a division with 7 or 8 wins every once in a while, and this year the NFL is expanding their playoffs again. In baseball, whether it's 8 teams like it used to be or it's 10, it's hard to get in, and because it's hard to get in, sometimes you can have a very good year and not get into the playoffs, meaning you have to be great. That means that for the teams that are competing for the playoffs all year long, every game means more, because you can't just be sitting there on September 1st on pace to win 92 games and just go to cruise control. You got to see if you can pick that pace up to get on pace to 95 or 96 wins, because there's another 90 plus win team that's in contention. So I like that, and to just water it down so that the Tigers could be 5 games below 500 going into September 1st, and they've got potentially a weak schedule, and then all of a sudden they could sneak in with an 80 and 82 record. That's an embarrassment. That's a joke. They don't need to be like the other leagues.
All right, well, let's get to the 4th chapter. We got the wager coming up here before we send you on your way here on the 5th chapter. And for that 4th chapter, there was a story that came out today in the NFL where 5 staffers and 3 players from the Tennessee Titans tested positive for COVID. The Titans played the Vikings this past weekend, so both teams shut down their facilities. Chap, what's next here for the Tennessee Titans and the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, the Titans' timeline is kind of interesting, and it shows kind of what we've been talking about all throughout the summer about how dangerous this is and how it can spread so quickly, because the Titans' linebackers coach actually tested positive on Saturday. It didn't travel with the team to Minnesota, and everybody else on the team and the staff tested negative, so they could travel. Then I didn't realize this until reading a story, but the NFL doesn't do any coronavirus tests on game day. So the day after they have a positive test, nobody gets tested. Then on Monday, boom, 3 players and 5 staffers. You wonder how many players would have been held out and how many staffers would have been held out if they had done game day testing. You wonder if they would have even had a game had they done game day testing. And now the Titans can't return to practice until at the earliest Saturday. And the Vikings could return sooner if everybody stays negative. But this Titans-Steelers game on Sunday is in jeopardy. I think that, number one, the NFL needs to start testing on game day, especially if we find out that some Vikings players test positive, because we won't know for certain, but there'll be about a 95% chance that if Vikings players test positive in the next couple of days, they can say, we got it from the Rona Titans. But I think that they definitely need to test on game day. I don't know why that's such a special day. All they're doing is sticking some stuff up your nose, and if they get the rapid testing, that's saliva. I think also these next couple of days are going to be critical, because if there aren't any more positive tests, then I guess you could say their protocols worked out for the most part. But think about what happened with the Cardinals and the Marlins. The Cardinals had 2 cases one day, then the next day they had 4 more cases and they had an outbreak. You look at the Marlins, 1 case, then 2 days later, 3 more cases, the next day, 11 cases, then 3 cases the next day, and the next 4 days, I think they had 1 case each. So this explodes quickly. So if it's gonna mirror what happened with the Marlins, then we're gonna see the Tennessee Titans have maybe 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 more cases when the reports come out tomorrow, and then their game is going to get canceled. So very important to see what transpires over the next 24 to 48 hours, certainly with the Titans, but also with the Vikings.
Well, you're right about that. The Vikings didn't have any positive tests. They just shut things down because they played the Titans. The Titans, I looked at the three names of the players there. If they could just have next man up simply without those players in there, if they don't have any other anything else that spreads. I mean, the staffers, you want them in the game, but the show can still go on without them. Think about the Steelers. They have a bye week 8. Tennessee has a bye week 7. So that's not working out. Some of the numbers, when you look at the protocols to get back out on the field, you can go 10 days if you're not showing any symptoms to get back out there. Or the other one is you can go 5 days after a positive test. And if you get 2 negatives, you could get back on the field. So if you go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe there's a chance that you could get those players back. There's also the idea that they could move this game back to a Monday if if they're able to get those tests and you get that 5-day windows. But like you say, watching the other team or the other members of the teams, and if this thing spreads rapidly, then that's going to be the trouble part. So hopefully they can just keep this down and get back out there on the field on Sunday or Monday. This is the first real disruption. This is the first disruption. You had A.J. Terrell, the Falcons corner, out of Clemson, missed the game on Sunday, but that's been it, man. The NFL has done a really good job through the first 3 weeks. So this is a gigantic hurdle. We thought that, this could, this could crop up, and here it is. So
yeah, there's no bubble.
It's not a Marlins. Yeah, it's not like they can be like the Marlins and the Cards and just say, oh, well, we'll just only play a game for the first 2 months and then we'll play some double headers. Football doesn't have that luxury, so they can push back a day. I don't know. Maybe they can plan a Tuesday. Maybe they can get creative, but they need to have an X man up mentality. What they really need to do is have a bunch of negative tests for the rest of the team coming up tomorrow and the next day.
Well, and the odds that you were talking about of them having negative tests, back-to-back negative tests, that's just extremely unlikely because the coronavirus doesn't just get in your body and then out of your system in 2 or 3 days. It's going to be there for likely 5, 10, maybe a couple of weeks, and if it's really bad, it could last even longer than that. So it's not like they're going to test positive on Monday and then negative test Thursday, negative test Friday on the field on Sunday. That's it's extremely unlikely. You're right. The number one thing is to hope that there's nothing more to come of these positive tests over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I defer mostly to you when it comes down to those numbers and the real inside when it comes down to COVID. You follow it closer than I do, that's for sure.
Well, and the other thing about this is that as we saw with the coach testing positive on Saturday and then nobody else testing positive until Monday, obviously there were no tests on Sunday, is that this stuff, the coronavirus can be in your system without yielding a positive test for a couple of days. So that means that perhaps a Minnesota Viking won't test positive until tomorrow or the next day, and some of these Tennessee Titans won't test positive until tomorrow or the next day. It's just a very tricky situation.
Very tricky, and if you like to get into that online argument on whether the coaches should be wearing masks and people fighting back and forth where they don't need to and everything else, this ignited. That is one of my least favorite arguments, but it's out there online every single day, and this ignited it back up. All right, Chapman, let's get the major wager. We're sitting here. We've got money burning a hole in our pockets. Let's make some moves.
Yeah. I've been having some trouble recently, that's for certain. And when you look at what's on the table right now, regular season baseball over, NHL over, NFL and NBA are not on tonight. I'm not going to place a major wager on that tonight. But playoff baseball, there's a ton. 4 games today, 8 games tomorrow. My favorite time of the year. Earlier today, my major wager was the Twins -1.5 at +120. And that they lost 4-1. That was a bad choice. I mean, the Twins had been on fire at home. The Astros had been ice cold. Kenta Maeda had been great this year, as we had seen against the Tigers multiple times. And they really blew this game in the first inning, because in the first inning they had the bases loaded with 1 out against Zach Greinke, and they didn't score. I believe he got a strikeout and then a ground out. And that was an opportunity to break the game open, 3, 4, 5 runs against their ace, and instead they got nothing. And then Jorge Polanco blows the game with a terrible SOL error in the 9th inning. I mean, who's going to win a playoff game first, the Twins or the Lions? So that was a bad choice. But I will say this, the other games that I chose on Twitter, if you looked at them, where I had the White Sox winning and they won. I had the Indians plus 1.5 at minus 175. And looking at the score in that game right now, they're down 4-1 in the top of the 4th. But if they lose by 1 run, you could still win that one. And then I also had the Rays to win at minus 190. And that game is final. They won 3-1. So okay so far, but the major wager, that was an L.
Yeah, I just continue to have success. I wish I would have been throwing real money down here, making these picks on the 5th chapter. An update here just from last week. I put some future bets on the O's and Tigers on the over for the season totals. Those both were winners. And then I put the Yankees and Dodgers on the under. Well, the Yankees were an under, so I ended up cleaning up 140 on that, which takes me up to 440, and then I put 50 on the Vikings plus 2.5 last Tuesday, and they lost, but only by 1 point. So that was a winner. So I'm sitting here at 490. I'm going to take the Bills. Well, wait, I guess I can wait on that one because I'm going to take the Heat. But I'm just putting I get plus 375. If I want to take the Heat. So I'm going to put 25 down on the Heat. That'll cash a 93.75 ticket if the Heat are able to win it. So that's the direction I'm going to go. Heat in 6 for 25, but I'll pay out 93.75. I'll be able to collect if Miami does pull the gigantic upset, which I'm betting on that they will.
And we all hope that you're right. That's for certain.
All right, chap, that's going to do it here for the 5th
Tonight,
chapter.
on the 5th
We'll have
chapter,
a game
the
1 to
MLB
talk
playoffs are
about
underway
coming
and
up on Thursday, and we'll be that much closer to the football weekend. We'll get an update on those Titans, and we will be able to look at how the Lions are going to fare against the Saints. So for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithy, and we will talk with you on Thursday, same time here, 7:30 on the 5th chapter.
Enjoy the fake news.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the 5th chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the 5th chapter.